Welcome back to A Tale of Carp, and we're 11 hours already into a drive across France, and we've just hit the beautiful French Alps. Probably one of my favourite places in the world. The scenery is unbelievable, and amongst these mountains are some of the most amazing lakes you've ever seen, and they contain massive carp. So why do we want an alpine adventure in the middle of the summer? It's 33 degrees outside, and the reason I've come here is a lot of the water on these Alps lakes, it's snow melt, so the water temperature is a lot lower at this time of the year, which means they still fish right the way through the middle of the summer, when other lakes just shut down through low oxygen and a lot of heat. These lakes are flourishing. The venue I'm going to, I've never been to before. I've just heard some whispers about, which is one of 3 that we can potentially fish. You're not guaranteed to get a swim, so I'm quite excited but apprehensive about getting a spot. We've got hot temperatures outside with cool water, and hopefully that is going to lead us to an alpine monster. Alright, well I was just about to go out in the main boat and drop a marker pole where I was going to bait for the week, but there's so many fish fizzing on the left, I'd be stupid to keep ignoring it, so I've just quickly got a rod ready. There's a chance for a bite there, it might happen, it might not, but I've stuck it in the hunter bait boat so it's nice and quiet, it's going to come over the spot. A few handfuls of tigers and broken boilies, let's see what happens. Well, that was an absolute one-toner, and that one we dropped out of the boat has gone, and it's took loads of line on its first run, probably 50-60 yards of line. It's nodding around there in the middle of the lake, and we're into our first Alps carp of the trip. But it's always worth just getting the rod out on the fish while you're getting ready, and it can pay off. Well, let's hopefully we'll get him in. 30 foot of water out here, so you're pulling the fish up a long way, and it's holding water, lovely that is. Beautiful fish, definitely a 30 pounder. We've had the rod out an hour and the fish is still on that bar, and that just goes to show putting out that little bait boat really subtle across the top of them fish didn't spook them, didn't bother going out in the big boat. It's really paid off. If you ever got a quick link on, it's much easier sometimes. If you can't get the hook out, you can literally just slip the hook link off. That way you can get your rod out of the way. So that's the rig. It's a blowback rig, size 4 beak point, with 1 real tiger, 1 fake tiger. And just to sort this rod out, leave the fish resting, then we'll have a look at her. There we go, just over 31 pounds. Well, what a lovely start to our alpine adventure. 31 pound mirror on a public lake in French Alps. There's swimmers, dogs swimming around. It's absolute mayhem, but the lake is beautiful, gin clear. What more could you want? So we got off the mark this morning after putting that small boat out over them fish. But right now I'm going back out to the H block I put out last night where a few fish had showed. And it's a really good feature. The lake is about 30 to 32 feet, then comes up to 16, 17 foot across the top of a bar for about 25 yards, then drops back down again to 29 foot. So it's a real prominent feature and one I think the fish will be using this week. So I've just set the marker pole up. We're going to go out, drop that. I'm going to watch the fish finder when it comes up around 17 foot and I've got a nice clear lake bed. Then I'm going to pick up the H block, bait this up, drop a rod onto it and we'll go back. But it's not what I'd call a long rod. I'd say I'm fishing maybe 200 yards on this, where in the past we've fished up to 400, but this is quite a nice range. So I did drop a little bit of bait out on the spot, but this morning the coots are still eating it, which tells me the carp haven't been and visited the area. But I'm still going to put a rod on there because it was yesterday evening that they were showing. And hopefully me turning up in this big boat now will scare the hell out of the coots and they'll all fly off. That is such a nice bottom there. Right, what we're going to do now then, now we're determined that that is a nice flat bottom, it's got no onion weed laying around it. I'm going to go and pick up the H block. So you don't want to bait on your pole, because obviously, you know, you don't want the line to hit it straight away. With these poles, if the line goes round it, they simply just duck under and pop back up. They've got a swivel on the bottom, which means you can't take the pole out when playing a fish. But the smart thing to do is bait, you know, 10 foot to it wherever you want. And with me, I'm going to bait 10 foot in front of it. That way, when the fish runs, if it goes round the pole, it will just literally dip down and come back up. That's the way they're designed. Boom. That is a beautiful spot. There's the foam just popped up. Didn't really need foam on that, but it's always good to put it on just to be safe, because you never know all the little debris you've got floating down from where you just baited up. You only need one of them to catch on your hook and you're not fishing. Nice even pressure, you can sink your line all the way back. Fish. So the spot I've had the last two bites off, when me and Ross are out in the boat dropping the marker, a fish jumps just outside of a tree line, and it's always good to mark a spot like that. When we've gone back out there, there's a lovely hump that's 26 foot with 23 on top of the hump, and that is where that fish showed. Yeah, I haven't marked the spot, I'm just lining up with the same old dead tree, dropping it about a rod length off it, one scoop of bait, and we've had two bites off of it now. Baka! That's tiny. Oh, that was smaller than I thought it was going to be. Let's get that rod back out. Okay, so we've almost got all the rods out. I'm just putting the last rod out. And with this, I ain't going out finding a spot or anything like that. I'm going to an area where I've seen quite a few fish show, and I'm going to get the echo sounder on, see what's in the area. I've got the rod here. I'm going to drop a lead down on the spot, put a couple of scoops over it and drive it back. So once you've had that first take, that opens up the pathway to catching more fish, because you know the rig worked. I knew to put all 3 rods on blowback rigs. Big hooks, we want big hooks in here. There's fish to over 60 pound. Last thing you want to be doing is hooking a 60 pound fish on a size 6 hook when there's wee beds and snags about, which this lake has got both in abundance. So at the moment, or the depth finder, this is like having eyes under the water. It's 30 foot deep, it's a very flat bottom, and what we're looking for is features, gravel bars that are coming up off the bottom and things like that, that are going to provide, you know, shallower spots and decent feeding areas for the fish. And I can see I'm not really seeing any fish in anything deeper than 25. Anything shallower than 25, I'm finding a few fish, which shows that's the area that they're comfortable in. Now this is a very interesting area. There's a very shallow area with small lilies, and it's 23 foot here. Very clear. I think this will be a really good spot. I'm going to try and drop a bait on it. On the drone earlier we saw a massive fish, an upper 50-60 pound fish, and it was in, honestly, the most ridiculous shallow water, this shallow. It's got to be worth putting a rod here. Let's see what the bottom's like there. Very soft. It's 17 foot, it's a really nice little area. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a risk on that. So we're about 36 hours into the session. We've had a few bites, but already there has to be a few tactical changes to suit the venue. I started off on my normal blowback rig with a shrink tubing on the shank, using 25-pound Camo X Soft. When I come to the continent, a lot of the time I do fish just like I do in the UK, but obviously with the weed and snags, I can see there's going to have to be some changes. So I changed over to the Spectre in 20-pound. The fish I hooked this morning got to weed and I was cut off. I need a hook link with the same stiffness but something a lot tougher, and that'll be the Camo X Stiff. This is a super stiff coating on this hook link, so I know when the crayfish are messing around with the bait on the bottom, unlike the soft, they ain't gonna push the bait everywhere. It's gonna stay nice and straight. It ain't gonna mess my presentation up. And to that, the Double X snag hook is very similar to the beak point, but it's a much thicker gauge wire, still super sharp. So I'm gonna add a lot more beefed up presentation to the end there, and hopefully we're gonna land the next fish. We're only one night into our trip. The first day was spent looking for waters. They're all public waters. We're driving around, looking for somewhere to fish. This one caught my eye as soon as we got here. I liked the look of it. So we ended up coming back. Yesterday, amazingly, we had 3 bites. 2 small fish and a 30. And then this morning I've got another bite, and unfortunately it found a snag and I lost it. What's exciting is we're not 100% sure what's here. We know there's at least a 60-pounder in this lake, so maybe we're going to have to wade through smaller fish, or we just got lucky. We don't know at the moment. It's all trial and error. I've had to sort of beef everything up. 10-ounce leads, 25-30-pound hook links, size 4 double X hooks. So everything I'm fishing is strong. There's quite a few features in this lake, from gravel bars, weed beds, there's massive trees in the water, so there's plenty to go at. So we're just going to stick to the tactics we're doing, keep our eyes out on the water, see if we see any really big fish, and we'll see how this week progresses.
Oh, maybe it ain't.
You're all right, just have to hit it. I've just hooked one off that back and it's trying to get them off them trees. Good that the braid's got no stretch in it, so I'm in direct contact with that fish. Getting him off that back wall, just got to keep him moving. Don't want him snagging me up. And it feels like now he's moved into that deeper water. If he does kite round to the right, I'm going to get in the boat because I don't want to lose one in that snag again. Yeah, they know exactly where they're going. It headed for the same weed bed as the last fish, but this time we're above it, which does give us a much better chance. As you can see the weed already hanging off of that. There we go. He knows we're above him now. And there's the fish. Don't look a massive carp, but it don't take a big carp to tow you around a lake. You can just see her in that gin clear water, just powering away. It looks absolutely beautiful. In she goes, yes. There we go. When you get a fish in the boat, it's quite important you check the position of that fish before you go motoring back. You don't want to motor back with his head facing the back of the boat, water rushing up inside his gills, potentially could kill him or at least hurt him. So once you've got the fish in net, get her in, wrap the net up, keep the fish to the side, slow plod back, face forward. I think what I'm going to do, 2 even 3 rods to the back of there, because at the moment that's doing all the bites and I've only got 1 rod across there, so it'd be mad not put 2 or 3. There's a good 500 yards of snaggy banks, so plenty of places to place some more rods, and the potential for catching a lump, it's all there to play for. Look at that, absolutely beautiful. Starburst scales all across its back. Probably about a mid-20, lovely carp. Couldn't ask for more, could you? Beautiful evening, the French Alps in the background, and the rod goes. I was quite nervous when that went because there's some massive snags over the back there, and I knew I had to get it away quick. I stepped up the hook today, changed over to a double X, because I knew when that rod went, I had to be on it and pulling, and it's come away reasonably easy. I fished some really deep lakes last year in Italy, like 100 foot deep, and when you hook the carp, they didn't want to go down there and fight. But on these lakes, where they're 30 foot deep, they don't mind going down 30 foot to have a scrap. They can really hold water when they're down there. Only probably 10 minutes ago, I had 2 swimmers swim 10, 15 yards past my spot. So these carp are obviously so used to having people swimming around all day long. It's a lovely evening. I think the local people have finished work. They've all come down. And if you went 25 yards up, it's like a beach here. There's people sunbathing. Really scrapping now under the rod tip, which I thought they would do. It's gin clear and it comes up from about 25 foot. Wow, such a powerful carp. Really beautiful fish as well. Really want to get this in. Please do not come off. Look at that. That is definitely the best fish so far. Oh my God, it's an absolute stunner as well. Ross, are you a magician? £38. So on day 2, an absolutely magnificent beast. Look at that, £38 of Alps linear, absolutely mega carp. This is what we come here for. I'm well pleased with this one. It felt a better fish. As soon as I picked the rod up, then swam all the way towards me till it was under the rod tip, and then went absolutely crazy. Never say absolutely anymore, he can punch me straight in the face with that. What a lovely carp. Well, I had a drop back there,
Something's took me Ned off. Could have been a small catfish, could have been a crayfish, but I've had that in the UK on some of the pressured venues. You just get a few bleeps and they've dumped the lead, and that gives them enough room to shake the hook out, but that hook is still super sharp, so I'm not sure that's happened. I'm just going to fish a much tighter line to that tonight. Make sure that any indication comes immediately. The crayfish haven't given me too much trouble. I tried a boilie on that rod last night and there ain't too much damage on it, so they definitely know when they're being hooked, these carp. Quite a few of the bites, I'm getting 4 or 5 bleeps 5 minutes before the take, and it's like they're feeling the weight of that 10-ounce lead and they're just sitting there trying to deal with it. But there's no dealing with a 10-ounce lead really. If it don't come off the clip straight away, then it's setting the hook. These uni clips are really good for getting rid of the lead quickly, so that's why I really want to fish a tight line onto them so the lead does set that hook deep into the fish's mouth. The fish we had last night, the 38, was hooked about 3 inches back into its mouth, so it's absolutely nailed, and that was on a tiger nut. It really did want that bait, but I've been putting more boilie over the rods to try and bring in a bigger fish.
Well, we just had this one, mid-morning, boiling hot, and the lake is getting busy. Another 31 pounds. Absolutely lovely fish. I had to go out in the boat for this because it weeded me up. But the stamper fish has definitely got better, and we're only halfway through the week. So there's a few locals who want to have a look at this fish, so I'm going to let them come over and have a look, and then we'll get her back. These guys were just up there swimming. They see me playing the fish in the boat and they wanted to come down and have a look, so they've got in on the film. Very nice, no problem. Merci. Okay, I'm just going to run you through what's been successful for me so far this week. As always, when I'm fishing abroad, I like to bring a shelf life. I ain't got to worry about it going off. So I've got the Banoffee shelf life there from Mainline. Absolute brilliant bit of bait and works everywhere I go. So I always bring that. But because I knew there was crayfish in this lake, I've brought some tiger nuts. Crayfish love boilies, but they're not so keen on tigers. They can't really deal with them, they're too hard. And that's as well as bream and tench can't either. So I always have a good helping of tiger nuts in my bait, which I put into the bait. Then the 20mm baits I've got, I'll use whole and chopped baits through the chopper. So if you've got sort of 10 kilo of bait and it's going to give you 10,000 baits, you can turn that into 20,000 baits, even though it weighs the same, by just halving them. And when it cuts them in half, it allows the smell of the bait to get out more. It doesn't roll down shelves if you want to be fishing sharp margin shells. Just a really good mix. In there, I've added some hemp oil. And I give it a good stir, and you'll see a bit of buckwheat in there as well. So that's a real mix of bait there. And there's stuff there that, yeah, the crayfish will eat the boilies. I'm still going to have buckwheat and tigers left on the spot. I'm fishing a tiger nut hook bait with a little bit of plastic on the back of it. So I'm always fishing out there. I've got rigs that are stiff so they can't move them off the spot. And that is basically a perfect mix to be using on a lake like this. So when you look at that mix, there's lots of different smells, tastes and oils coming through the column. And that is something I would take anywhere in Europe or England. An absolutely brilliant bait, and so far this week it's doing us a few fish. Well, there's the culprit of the boat battle. Not a massive fish, probably mid-20, but when they tuck themselves behind that weed bed, the only way to get them out is get out there and get above them. They're fighting their heads off. We're getting regular bites, 2-3 bites a day, and I weren't expecting that because I didn't really know what the stock was, but surely sooner or later we're going to bump into one of the really big fish in the lake. We've got 3 days left and we're on countdown, so hopefully something's going to happen. Well, the first time and the last time I was in the French Alps was probably over 2 years ago now, and that was when we was making one of the Great Escapes. And when we was here, it really opened my eyes to how many lakes and gravel systems run through the whole valley of the French Alps. They're everywhere, from small intimate ponds to massive inland seas. So after finishing that film, which was quite successful, I've always wanted to come back and do a bit of my own fishing here. So here we are. This lake isn't massive, I'd say 35 acres, and you can't fail to be impressed by the beauty of the French Alps. Mountains surround you, and I don't think there's probably anywhere else in the world for carp fishing like this. It really is a unique place for views, and the water systems, they're blue and gin clear, just where the ice melts off the mountains at the end of the winter and fills up this valley. It's probably the cleanest water you're ever going to see. fish themselves, there's a lot of lakes that are stocks, but a lot of the stock is unknown in the lakes. They've literally naturally bred on, and despite some of them being iced over all winter, the carp grow absolutely colossal up here. We've heard there's fish in here that in pounds, talking in English, go to over 60 pounds. So yeah, it's an excellent option to come to, and it's outside the box. You know, when you speak to your friends or other anglers, everyone's travelling 3 or 4 hours into France to a holiday venue, but I think the real wild fishing is on the public venues. This is free to fish, you just turn up and fish. It is so far removed from what we do back home, and there is like the hardcore element out on these lakes. You know, some of them are not easy. Some of the lads are only catching a few fish a year, but seriously special fish, 50, 60 pound fish that ain't getting caught. They're years apart between captures. And to think that it isn't hardcore, you're absolutely living in a dream world. So throughout the week, I started off fishing one rod on a bar system to my left, another rod on top of a plateau, which I found using the fish finder in the boat, and then the other two were against the back on snags. As the weeks progressed, I've had a cut off on one hook link, so I knew I really needed to step up the hook links. I've gone on to sort of 25 pound stiff coated. Now I could have gone on to 35, but the 25 is extremely tough, and I'd be shocked if that got cut through because the coating is so tough. Stronger hooks, double X hooks, because you're pulling them away from a tree line, and it became very clear that that snag system running along the back of this lake, which is an out of bounds, was the place to have your baits. It's quite exciting. When you get a bite, you've got to be on the rod within 5 or 6 seconds, because what they want to do is get into them tree trunks, and there's so much woodwork across that back. I've got 30 pound descend braid on. I've got a new shock leader that we're testing, which is a fluorocarbon in 40 pound, and you are hanging on. So you need really strong tackle. Bye. Well, we was just chatting about the French Alps and how you're coming out here to fish for wild carp, and might not have seen a hook in months, sometimes years. There's quite a bit of weed between here and the other side, but because of the depth of water, a lot of the time I'm managing to keep them above it, but the odd one is locking up in there and we have to go out in the boat. But this one at the moment is coming in nice. We've got about 48 hours left. We've not had a massive fish yet this week, so we're hoping for a big one. This is when braid is really good, because you can really have a lot of control on a fish. Where if you was fishing this with a mono now, I actually think it'd be a nightmare. Fishing 250 yards, all that stretch, I think the fish would make the snags before you even got to the rod. Much safer for the fish if you fish a braided mainline. Here comes the leader knot. Ball of weed hanging off it. There we go. Yes. Actually, it's bigger than I thought. It ate my back, that did. That's from yesterday. Paul comes out, I have to do fitness. 28 and a half, that's... Ross is getting too good at judging fish. There you go, another one. Big old head on this fish. Unfortunately, I ain't got the gut to go with the head, but 28 and a half pound, another bite. This fish is actually hot, the water's that warm, so I ain't gonna keep her out for long, or him. Let's have a quick look, get him back. Cheers, mate.
not a massive fish. If it had come off, I thought it would have been, because it pulled really hard. But we get out, have a quick look. Middle of the day bite, probably 31, 32 degrees. Mountains in the background. What more could you want, other than a 50? Well, fish number 10. We're still in search for a monster, but we're really getting amongst them. So just got to keep going. A little under, a few days left. Real good fun. Surely the big one's got to slip up soon. Last 2 fish have been on boilies rather than tiger nuts, as the crayfish ain't so active. So we'll slip this one back, only £26, and we get that rod back out straight away. 32 degrees and we're getting bites. So when you look at the location of fish, you get to the lake, the key thing is fish love snags, they love weed. So you're open deep water, most of the time you can write it off. Any sort of shelf system, things like that, patrol routes, they're the kind of places I'm looking for when I'm looking to locate the fish. And the most important thing, keeping your eyes on the water. Because when they're in them strange places, sometimes they give it away by rolling and jumping. The spot that I'm fishing now, it's a hump, it's 29 foot, and then it comes up to 23 foot on a hump, drops down and goes up a margin shelf. Your first day and a half when you get to a new lake will be spent exploring, putting that jigsaw together. But for the next 5 days, you really can reap the rewards if you keep your eyes open and do a bit of exploring. Well, just had a bite. Lost one this morning in a snag that just was not moving. I think it had shot the hook and left it in it. This one's just gone round saying, I'm going to jump in the boat and go out and try and get it out of it.
I'm going to jump in the boat.
So I'm on my way out to the fish. It's got itself behind a big weed bed. It sits at the back of quite a steep wall. Rather than try and pull it up it, risk getting cut off on mussels and things like that, I'm going to get out above the fish. Hopefully she'll still be there. I've got the engine on and I'm also pulling myself towards the fish just slightly, and that will steer the boat in the right direction. Generally, once you get above a fish, it's a lot easier. You can just pop them out the weed. Prior to that, it's hard because you're dragging them over something. And this is where they will bolt. As soon as they get a glimpse of me looking down at them, they're not interested. This fish is over about 25 foot of water at the moment, and I can see it down there. And I think it could be our first common of the week, I'm not sure. There we go. Yes! And we got her in. Not a bad fish, definitely a 30. Probably one of the better fish of the week. £30.5. Well, this was the culprit, just over £30. Took us out in the boat and sat down behind that weed bed, and it weren't worth trying to pull her through it. Went out there and it just popped up and we got her in. Absolutely beautiful carp. We've had quite a few 30s now. We've got one night left. We've been getting day bites, so it's all on today to catch a big one. The clock is counting down. But either way, we are having an amazing time out here. It's been absolutely brilliant. Let's just see what today brings. Thank you, darling.
Well, another beautiful 30-pounder. French Alps has been really kind to us. Got about 12 hours left. The clock is ticking. Come on. Can't tell them, man. They're waiting.
Well, this could be our last Alps fish, and what a beautiful carp. We've had an amazing week catching some lovely carp, plenty of 30s, 20s, and we've learned loads about this area, and it's a place we will definitely be returning. I'm going to get her back now. We've got one more night left. We've got to be off early doors, maybe another take, but if not, we've had an absolutely brilliant week. Thank you very much, darling.